Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was sealed master and got harem with many girls, part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Now Hinata-chan, Naruto instructed, I'll need you to lie on your back on your shirt like a mat so I can first write the seal outlines between your. I do wonder why we can't do this back in your place Naruto-kun, Hinata said. Ever since that incident when I knocked out all of those would-be ninjas and all of the other ninjas and the Hokage simultaneously with my Waroke no Jutsu during our academy field day, Naruto explained, I've been put under a magnifying glass with the Hokage and several others keeping an eye on me and watching my movements. I know that they're suspicious of me and my true potential. And if one of them were to see you undressed halfway in my apartment, looked at himself, and with me still being shirtless, and while not fully knowing what we were discussing, we would have a most difficult time explaining to the Hokage and your father what we were doing and what we were not about to engage in. Hinata's face burned a sanguine red when the implications of Naruto's words came at full force. She almost passed out from realization where Naruto was going with what he was saying, and if she was honest with herself, the idea of getting caught in the forest as they were right now kind of excited her. I say your point, Naruto-kun, Hinata agreed before she lied on her front on her shirt. Naruto went over to her and prepared to place the seals on her as he knelt down next to her at her right. Bear with me on this, Naruto requested, this process will take a while, but not all day. Taking the ink brush, Naruto started writing the outlining of the seals around the designated area on her body. Hinata giggled, that tickles Naruto-kun. Glad to see no expression of discomfort on your face, Naruto grinned back at her. It took another 33 minutes until Naruto was done with the intricate outlining of the Inryoku Fujin. When that was done, he carefully began filling in the outlining of the seal with ink and made sure not to miss a spot or drop ink in the wrong region of the seal. After another 15 minutes, Naruto was done with that task. Alright Hinata-chan, Naruto said as he cleaned and put the ink brush and bottle away, now for the chakra Sokubaku Fujin. It wasn't until 45 minutes when Naruto was done writing and drawing the second seal around the first one. Now, Naruto said, I'm going to finalize and activate the seals simultaneously. Naruto gave the ink several minutes to dry first. After seals dried, he gathered the required amount of chakra before performing a set of complex hand signs and then placing his right hand on spot where the seals were. Hinata's face burned dark red upon seeing where Naruto's hand was. Naruto-kun is touching my. Hinata screamed in both shock and excitement. Fuin Jutsu. Seigo Fujin, Naruto said as he sent chakra from his hand and into the seals to activate them. Hinata cringed when she sudden felt pain traveling all around her body as seal writings start appearing and spreading all around her body and head. What is this? Hinata managed to say, why does this hurt so much? It's part of the integration process, Naruto said, the two seals are spread all around your body and chakra coils as your body is being forced to adjust and adapt to the new seals. You never said it would hurt this much, Hinata retorted. I know, Naruto admitted, sorry for keeping that bit of information from you. But I figured that the idea of immense pain would shy you away from accepting having these seals placed on you. That's not fair, Hinata remarked as she winced and cringed from the pain. No, it wasn't, Naruto admitted, but you'll thank me later for this. 2 minutes later, the seal disappeared from sight into Hinata's body. When that was done, the immense pain Hinata felt was completely gone, although she felt some heaviness and restraint with her body and chakra coils now. I feel better now, Hinata said, but it's difficult to even move right. That's your body responding to the adaptation of the force now placed around your body, Naruto said. The seals are now activated. You're currently on level 1 on both seals. Naruto stood back up and helped Hinata stand back on her feet. What level are you currently on? Hinata asked. Level 2.5, Naruto replied. Level 1 was too light for me. But it's still difficult moving in my current level, but I try not to show it too much. Naruto reached down and retrieved Hinata's shirt. I think you better put this back on, Hinata-chan, Naruto said. You flashed me enough for the day. Hinata's face turned red again at what Naruto was implying after giving her back her shirt. I'm not the kind of girl, Naruto-kun, Hinata chided Naruto. But I'm sure you enjoyed it, Naruto teased. I know You're not planning on telling, are you? Hinata asked worriedly. Hell no, Naruto replied. No one else needs to know. This was our private and sacred bonding moment. Our private and sacred bonding moment, Hinata repeated. That's right, Naruto said. I know I was only teasing you earlier, but I took what I did very seriously. Those seals were gifts I shared with you as my closest friend. Naruto reached out and took Hinata's right hand and placed it on his chest as he placed his right hand between her exposed. Both youths were feeling each other's heartbeats. You feel that, Hinata-chan? Naruto said. That's the beats of our hearts dancing together harmoniously. We linked our hearts together through the use of these very seals. Again, Hinata was captivated by Naruto's metaphoric and poetic character. Yes, Hinata said with a bright smile, our hearts are linked together harmoniously. Removing his hand off her, Naruto allowed her to put her shirt back on as he placed his own shirt back on. When they were done, Naruto scooped her off her feet and carried her in his arms bridal style. Here we go, Naruto said as he shushined back to his apartment and back in his living room. We're back, Naruto said, stating the obvious. I'm sure you're thirsty and hungry from that experience. How about some tea and frosted cinnamon rolls? Hinata nodded her head. I'd love that very much. Hinata and Naruto spent the rest of the day talking and relating stories to each other. The Hyuga heiress laughed at some of the things Naruto told her with regards to the latest jokes and pranks he pulled on his unsuspecting victims, some of them Junin and Anbu ninjas. Pretty much, Hinata had a great time with Naruto. A week later, it was another typical day at the academy, almost typical since many students and teachers noticed that Hinata became rather clumsy and stumbling in her walking all of a suddenly for the couple of days. True to Naruto's words, she was having difficulty adjusting to the effects of the two seals and she felt more tired than normal as a result. When asked why by her teachers, Hinata said that she had been exerting herself harder in her training in order to improve. While the teachers approved of her wanting to improve, they told her that she was only doing more harm to herself by overworking herself and not taking the required amount of rest needed. Regardless, Naruto was there to give her the needed support. Meanwhile in class, Hinata was doing all she could to focus on Iruka's lecture. But frequently her mind would drift and replay the event that took place between her and Naruto a week ago. Whenever she recalled how she stood shirtless in front of Naruto, she giggled and blushed uncontrollably. That of course didn't go unnoticed by some in the class, especially Ino. That look, Ino said lowly to herself, that giggle, and the way she's irregularly blushing. Ino then grinned mischievously. Hinata obviously did something naughty. Later that day, Hinata was outside sitting at one of the tables she reserved for both herself and Naruto. It was now everyone's lunch break and Naruto was soon to arrive. As she was waiting, Ino approached her. Hey Hinata, Ino said as she came and sat next to the Hyuga heiress, you feeling alright? Hinata was surprised that Ino came to talk with her. The blonde-haired girl took out her lunch and placed it on the table. I'm fine, thank you, Hinata replied. Smiling, Ino continued, so spill it. Spill what? Hinata asked with a confused look. Why you were blushing and giggling in class while taking peeks at Naruto here and there? Ino replied with a smile. Obviously, something happened, something naughty you did. I'm sure it involves Naruto. What or why you? Tal ki kng about, Hinata stuttered and gulped, getting very nervous and fearful about the fact that Ino was onto her. You can tell me, Ino persisted as she started eating her lunch, it's just talk between us girls. I want to hear what happened. Ino was notorious for gossip and was always trying to find the latest on anyone and anything. And she was also notorious for spread the latest news and rumors about anyone. The reas no, nothing G to saw say, Ino-san, Hinata stuttered, desperately hoping that would get Ino off her back. Nothing happened. Simon, Ino insisted between bites of her lunch, don't be a spoiled sport. I know you did something, you don't want others to know. If you know that for a fact, a voice said, then you're best to leave Hinata alone. Both girls turned to see Sasuke standing behind them with his own lunch in hand. Sasuke-kun, Ino greeted. Hinata evidently doesn't wish to discuss her business with you, Sasuke said, so why do you just let her be? Ino felt disappointed that she would get the latest info from Hinata, but she placed her wanting to gain Sasuke's favor as a priority over her want for hearing the latest gossip. Alright Sasuke-kun, Ino chirped, whatever you say. Sasuke was over and sat next to Hinata at her left while Ino was sitting by Hinata at her right. He set his own lunch down and started eating. It's okay to eat now Hinata, Sasuke said, there's no need to wait for Naruto while I'm here. From a distance not too far from where Hinata, Ino and Sasuke were, Shikamaru and Choji were watching the scene from another table. That Sasuke is proving to be a real troublesome person, Shikamaru said, more than usual. How does that come off as a surprise? Choji remarked. Sasuke's been cold, harsh and callous since his clan's extermination by Itachi's hands, Shikamaru said. His traumatizing experience turned him into a completely different person since that day. What made him suddenly want to be friendly with Hinata for these past couple of months is the troublesome part. Why is that? Choji asked. Hinata obviously don't pay attention to Sasuke as heavily as all the other girls do, Shikamaru elaborated. She doesn't pester him for dates nor does Hinata try to get his attention in any flirtatious or romantic way. She focuses more in her studying and training as a future ninja with no objective to prove anything to Sasuke. You suppose those factors could be the reason why Sasuke started to take an interest in Hinata? Choji asked. Much to the other girls' dismay, Shikamaru said as his eyes caught sight of someone approaching the table Hinata was sitting at, and to Naruto's irritation. Naruto was making his way to the table Hinata was sitting at. He was annoyed enough that Iruka held him in class longer than he wanted because of some bothersome questions Iruka wanted to ask him concerning his study and training habits. And seeing Sasuke sitting with Hinata didn't help things either. He's doing it again, Naruto grumbled in his mind as he saw Sasuke making conversation with Hinata. It wasn't like Naruto didn't want Hinata to eat or speak to anyone while he wasn't around since she was free to do what she felt comfortable doing. Nor did Naruto ever try to control when or with whom she could eat or talk to. But Sasuke's ulterior motives were what irritated Naruto. Collecting himself together and not letting emotions cloud his judgment, Naruto calmly approached the table and Hinata-chan, Naruto called out. The trio at the table turned to see Naruto approaching them with a cheesy grin on his face. Naruto-kun, Hinata greeted, obviously happy and relieved to see him. What took you? Baka Iruka-sensei, Naruto replied, as if his lectures weren't bad enough, he had me stay longer for more ridiculous questions I didn't feel like answering. Naruto saw that both sides of Hinata were occupied by Ino and Sasuke, and he knew that neither would get up nor leave if asked them to. And he didn't want to give the wrong impression by asking Hinata to come with him to another table away from Ino and Sasuke. Dobi, Sasuke remarked, quit being a bother by not standing around us all day like a wooden statue. Ignoring Sasuke, Naruto went over and sat at the other side of the table facing Hinata. I think sitting at this side of the table is better, Naruto said, while you two are eating with nothing more but my greatness to look at, I get the privilege of looking straight at Hinata-chan's full moonlight eyes as much as I want. Naruto-kun, Hinata giggled and blushed with her hands on her cheeks. Ino snickered at the scene, loving the juicy gossip she could spread from what she was hearing and watching firsthand. Sasuke wasn't at all amused as his conversation with Hinata was cut off by Naruto's presence. I was talking to Hinata before you interrupted Dobi, Sasuke said. Really? Naruto replied as he started eating. Well then, if she feels like whatever you have to say is of any importance, then I won't interfere. Not giving Naruto any retort, Sasuke turned his attention back to Hinata. Like I was saying, Sasuke continued, your kunai and shuriken throwing techniques have been rather sluggish lately and your endurance in our practice sessions with the other senseis have been below your normal results. I'm curious to know what happened to cause your decrease in stamina and output. Ino wasn't at all surprised by Sasuke's demeanor around Hinata as he showed more interest in the Hyuga heiress than any other female. Naruto ate and stayed quiet, wanting to see how things were going to play out and where Sasuke was aiming the intentions of his questions. It's not that my stamina and output decreased, Sasuke, Hinata said, it's just that my new form of training started taking a toll on my body lately. It's realistically to be expected when we seek to adapt to new methods of training and improving to become stronger than before, yes. Sasuke nodding in agreement, it is. I too push myself as hard as I can, trying to go beyond my own limitations and reach new plateaus. Clearly we have something in common. Perhaps we can practice and spar together from time to time. I accept the offer of sparring with you, Naruto interjected. I've been meaning to put you in your place for some time now, Tem. Oh, this is getting good, Ino chuckled in her mind at the scene unfolding. Annoyed, Sasuke remarked, I wasn't intending that I practice and spar with you, Dobi, and I never invited you into our conversation. How about we allow Hinata-chan to decide if I can join these spar sessions or not, Naruto suggested. That ought to be fair enough, wouldn't you say? I was the one who was extending the invitation out to her, Sasuke replied, and I'm sure Hinata can handle being and spending her time with me without you around her all the time. Besides, it would be refreshing for me to be around a female future ninja who's more concerned about her career as a kunoichi than how she looks like in the mirror. Such a kunoichi would prove to be a true asset and partner to me in the long run. Naruto saw what Sasuke was doing and it was really pissing him off. Is that right? Naruto remarked as he stood up from the table, you're looking for such a kunoichi, yes. Sasuke stood up and was about to give Naruto a retort when. Hey everyone! Naruto shouted so everyone could hear him. Sasuke is lonely and looking for a female partner to spar with right now and later join him as his long-term partner. Is there no girl available? Who can answer his cries to satisfy his needs and end his loneliness? Much to Sasuke's dread, all of the girls, including Sakura and Ino obviously, were in hearing range when they heard Naruto's declaration. Sasuke-kun wants a long-term female partner, one of the girls exclaimed excitedly. I'm that girl, another girl proclaimed. The hell you are, Sakura retorted before she and all of other girls ran up to Sasuke begging him to choose them as his sparring partner. In the confusion, Naruto appeared and grabbed Hinata's hand and ran off with her, leaving Sasuke alone to deal with the large crowd of girls pleading for his time and attention. Damn you, Naruto! Sasuke cursed as he lost sight of Hinata and Naruto. Meanwhile, Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba and Shino were watching the scene from another table. They had been doing so the entire time. You got to admire the way Naruto deals with Sasuke. Kiba laughed with Akamaru settle inside his jacket. It's quite entertaining. Somehow I doubt we'll see this issue between Naruto and Sasuke end soon, if peacefully, Shino added. They clearly have eyes on the same girl, Choji said as he partook of his bag of potato chips. Troublesome, Shikamaru remarked, the top student competing against the worst student over a girl in class. Honestly, I don't see this ending peacefully. As much as Kiba, Choji and Shino didn't want to admit, but they had to agree with Shikamaru's conclusion. Elsewhere, Naruto was laughing his off as he shushined to a secluded training ground with Hinata at the other side of the academy. That was an insane stunt you pull, Naruto-kun, Hinata giggled. Serves that jerk right, Naruto remarked. He ought to look for his own sparring partner instead of trying to steal somebody else's. While Hinata wasn't Naruto's official girlfriend, she wasn't blind to see that Naruto would get jealous when another guy would try to get her attention in a manner that would set off red flags in Naruto's head. Well, Naruto-kun, Hinata suggested, since we're here and alone, how about we? Attention everyone, the announcer said from the loudspeaker. Attention everyone. Lunch break is over. Please clean up and return back to your class. Thank you so much for whatever it was you wanted us to do with our remaining time, Naruto said. It's all right, Hinata assured. I was only suggesting a little exercise to help me adjust to these new seals. It's still difficult adapting to them. Don't worry, Hinata-chan, Naruto assured. With me at your side, you'll surpass whatever hindrance you have and then some. Datbeo. Hinata smiled brightly as Naruto took hold of her hand and walked back into the academy building with her. Naruto-kun, Hinata asked. Yeah, Naruto replied. Would you like to become my long-term partner? Hinata asked. We already are, Naruto grinned. Remember what I said last week? Our hearts are linked and beat harmoniously as one. Hinata giggled and replied, yes, I remember our private and sacred bonding moment, Naruto-kun. And I'll always treasure it. 1 year and 4 months later, at the Hyuga Manor. Hinata, age 12, was on her hands and knees with Hanabi, age 7, standing before her. Standing to the side by the wall were Hiashi and Ko. The Hyuga clan leader shook his head with his eyes closed with feelings of disappointment at Hinata's repeated defeat and failure to topple Hanabi in a one-on-one spar, again. That's enough for the day, Hiashi said as he turned and left the dojo, leaving his 2 daughters and Ko behind. Hinata was looking down at the floor with Hanabi walking toward her. The younger of the 2 stopped and looked down at Hinata. Nisan, Hanabi said, your performance today was far less than what I expected out of our clan heiress. You were even slower and sluggish than before. It's shameful that even I could beat you in a match. Neji, age 13, would simply crush you. Saying nothing further, Hanabi left the dojo and followed after her father. Ko went over to console Hinata. Don't let what they said get to you, Hinata-sama, Ko comforted. I know you have potential to do better and improve. How can I? Hinata cried teary-eyed. You just don't have the ability to use our clan's Jiyuken. No one in our clan learned the Jiyuken style overnight, Hinata-sama, Ko said. It'll just require more time and effort for you to adjust to our clan fighting style. I'm confident that you'll become better in time. Do you? Hinata sniffled. Really? Believe that? I do, Hinata-sama, Ko said. A knock came from the door. Hinata-chan, a voice called from behind the door, are you in there? Naruto-kun, age 12, Hinata said with her mood gradually changing from a sad one to a happier one. It always amazed Ko how Naruto's presence always brought a smile to Hinata's face regardless of whatever mood she was in. I was told by Hanabi that you were in the dojo, Naruto said. Are you able to come and hang out with me today? Hinata-sama will have to clean herself up first, Ko suggested. You'll have to wait until then. Not a problem, Naruto said from outside. I'll meet you in the front when you're done, Hinata-chan. Turning to the heiress, Ko said, you could use a break, Hinata-sama. Go and get yourself cleaned up. Your friend is waiting for you. Smiling, Hinata got up and hurried out of the dojo to get herself cleaned and ready to go. Meanwhile, Naruto was waiting patiently for Hinata's arrival outside the house. After another 15 minutes, Hinata appeared through the door. Hinata-chan, Naruto smiled brightly, you made it. For a moment there I thought I'd have to come and retrieve you personally. Hinata giggled, not that I'd mind you coming looking for me, but I don't think the others would approve of that. Like that would stop me, Naruto remarked. No, Hinata giggled, most likely not. Taking hold of her hand, Naruto led Hinata away. Though Naruto held Hinata's hands many times before, it was amazing that she would blush every time his hand entwined with hers. Once outside the Hyuga manor and out of hearing and seeing range, Hinata relaxed more and dropped her mask. Meanwhile, at the Hyuga manor, Hiyashi was sitting in his private study sipping his cup of tea. He sighed to himself as he thought about how poorly Hinata did in her spar session with Hanabi. I know Hinata can do better, Hiyashi thought to himself, but so much of her mother's kind and gentle spirit lives within her. As much as I don't want to believe this, but some of that gentleness is proving to be a real hindrance to Hinata's development. A knock soon came from the front of his private study. Yes, Hiyashi asked. May I come in, Hiyashi-sama? Ko requested. You may, Hiyashi granted. Ko entered Hiyashi's study and slid the door close behind him. Is there something you need? Hiyashi asked as he looked up at the cadet branch member. Ko went over to Hiyashi and knelt down on mat in front of the Hiyashi's table. If I may speak freely, Hiyashi-sama, Ko requested, I wish to discuss Hinata-sama's progress in our clan's Jiyuken. Hiyashi sighed to himself as he set his cup of tea down of the polished wooden table. This isn't the first time you approached me about my elder daughter's failure to quickly learn our clan's prized jutsus, Hiyashi pointed out, and I'm very well aware of Hinata's current handicap. Her handicap? Ko repeated in a confused tone, what handicap is this? Hiyashi paused for a minute and spoke again, I hate to have to say this, I believe my daughter's handicap stems from her inheriting her mother's gentle characteristics. From what I've observed, her behavior is very much like my late wife's, who herself didn't manifest much of the stern Hyuga mannerism. Hinata's kind spirit is the factor that's keeping her back from giving her all in fear of hurting anyone. The elders may argue that such behavior is unfitting for any heiress, Ko replied. There have been rumors that they may recommend that Hinata-sama be. They will recommend nothing concerning any of my two daughters without my approval, Hiyashi said with a hardened tone. Hinata still has time to improve in spite of Hanabi's faster progression. I will say though that it's most disappointing for me to see that Hanabi, who's 5 years her junior, is more adept to our clan's prized jutsus than my elder daughter. I may have to recommend requesting Yuhi Kurenai-san to be Hinata's trainer and eventual sensei. Hopefully, she might succeed at getting my daughter to improve in one way or another. Ko sighed lowly to himself, being aware who Kurenai was. From what he heard of the Genjutsu mistress, she was an ice queen recently promoted from Chunin to Junin who apparently developed a form of maternal spirit for Hinata after spending some time with young heiress. This maternal fondness developed sometime after Hinata's mother's untimely death due to sickness. I don't know what really happened to Hiyashi's wife. The manga never explained it, so I'm just making it up as I go. Maybe this Kurenai will succeed where the rest of us have failed, Ko figured. Excuse me, Hiyashi-sama. I will depart from you now. Hiyashi simply nodded as Ko turned and exited Hiyashi's private study office. He walked and made his way to the main entrance of the Hyuga Manor when he caught sight of Sasuke approaching the manor. Sasuke stopped at the main entrance when he saw Ko making his way over to him. Sasuke-san, Ko greeted, what brings you here? I was in the neighborhood when I decided to see if Hinata was available to talk to, Sasuke replied. I'm sorry Sasuke-san, Ko apologized, but Hinata-sama stepped out a while ago. I see, Sasuke said with disappointment in his tone, do you know where she went? I'm afraid I do not, Ko replied, I'm sorry I can't be of further help. Sasuke grunted before turning and walking off away from the main entrance. Ko knew that this wasn't Sasuke's first visit to the manor as he came by before. Though Hinata was willing to speak with him, she always gave excuses as to why she couldn't spend the day hanging out with him in the village, though she would so do in a heartbeat with Naruto. Ko saw that Hinata didn't have the same interest in Sasuke as she does for Naruto, but it was clear that Sasuke had that particular interest in the Hyuga heiress. It was true that the Hyuga held no ill will toward the last Uchiha. However, as a whole, the Hyuga and Uchiha clans were at one time known to be bitter rivals in terms of whose dojutsu was stronger than the other. Though it had been said by some that in terms of true sight that the Byakugan surpassed the Sharingan. It's beyond me why Kishimoto never elaborated on this statement in the manga. In terms of Hinata's future love life, Ko had no say in the matter. However, he doubted that Hiyashi would approve of having Sasuke wedded to either of his daughters and blending their bloodline limit with a once rival clan. Elsewhere, Hinata and Naruto were still walking hand in hand through the streets of Konoha. By this time, it was common knowledge how close the Hyuga heiress and Naruto were. Most decided not to pay them any mind while a few still whispered whenever they passed by. As for Naruto and Hinata themselves, they didn't care either way. Hinata-chan, Naruto said, I've been meaning to ask you how did your spar with Hanabi went? Hinata sighed, it's difficult holding back in my sparring sessions against Hanabi when I've improved so much from how I used to be. Is it because you fear that you might seriously hurt her more than you want to? Naruto asked. That, Hinata admitted, but while trying to follow your example, it's hard listening to my father's harsh words of disappointment while I lose to Hanabi. Along with that, my sister really believes that she's actually stronger, faster and more skilled in Juyuken than I am. Neji is no help either as he looks for every opportunity to belittle or mock me with false comfort while making remarks about fate and predestination. Even the clan elders look at me as a failure as an heiress. I even heard a rumor that a few of them were saying how if this keeps up, I'll be forced to step down as clan heiress and be replaced with Hanabi. Holding up this misleading pretense as a failure is harder than I honest thought it was going to be. Naruto understand where Hinata was coming from, especially since he was the very person who taught and explained to her the art of trickery. Welcome to the life of the ninja, Naruto remarked with no trace of sarcasm, like I told you before, deception is one of our main weapons and sometimes we can't even show our relatives what we're truly capable of. If they were to truly know everything about you, considering everything you told me about them, they would undoubtedly look for ways to keep you under their thumb. But hey, what do I know? I'm an orphan with no family or clan of my own to speak of, so. You have me Naruto-kun, Hinata said, and aren't I your best and closest friend? You are, Naruto smiled, and speaking of being my best friend, how about a friendly sparring session? I'm up to it, Hinata accepted. With that, Naruto led her to one of the secluded training grounds away from civilian territory. Naruto was happy to see that no one else was there using the area, and after a careful search, it was clear that they were truly alone and not being spied on. Well, we're here, Naruto-kun, Hinata said. Are you still up to that sparring session you offered me earlier? Ready and waiting, Naruto grinned as he took a few steps away from Hinata and got into a fighting position. Hinata assumed her Jiyuken stance, which looked more polished and professional than she led on when around others. Are you ready? Naruto challenged, my moon's eye spring rabbit. Despite her blush from the nickname he'd occasionally call her by, Hinata replied, more than ever. Both opponents looked at each other with calculative eyes, as if they were waiting for the other to attack first. Acting fast, Hinata back-flipped from an assault that came from behind at her feet from one of Naruto's cage bushions. She flipped away few times before she stood back up. That was a dirty trick, Hinata chided. Really? Naruto said, and since when do our enemies fight fair? This time Hinata took the offense and went to Naruto. The cage bushin trying to intersect her, but she effectively dispelled it with a quick Jiyuken strike. Reaching Naruto, Hinata engaged him in one-on-one combat. Unlike her spar session with Hanabi, Hinata made no attempt to hold back against Naruto, although her Inryoku Fujin served to slow her down some. Regardless, she pushed forward in the effort to keep up with Naruto's speed. Naruto saw that Hinata had indeed gotten much better in terms of her endurance and stamina. In the past, she couldn't even last a full 7 minutes because of the strain that the Inryoku Fujin placed on her body, mind and chakra coils. Now she was able to hold out longer than before, and her Jiyuken improved even more so as a result. Backing away, Naruto formed a hand sign. Taju Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Naruto said as she summoned 25 clones to his side and had them surround Hinata. 25 to 1 Hinata-chan, Naruto grinned, I got you surrounded. Not allowing herself to be deterred by the overwhelming number, Hinata stood her ground. Quality not quantity, Hinata said, that's what wins a fight. Isn't that what you taught me, Naruto-kun? Well then, let's see what you've learned, Naruto proposed before his clones rushed at Hinata. Bracing herself. Byakugan, Hinata said as she activated her bloodline limit and engaged the clones one by one, a few times 2 at a time. A couple of strikes managed to land their way on her, but she managed to hold her ground and fight back against them with more vigor and determination. As the number of clones decreased, Hinata saw that their speed and strength increased each time, thus adding to the difficulty of winning the battle and wearing her down faster. But there was no sign of Naruto ever releasing his seals at all. Therefore Hinata didn't release hers either, but rather endured the increasing difficulty and fought on. By the time the clones were all gone, Hinata was sweating, breathing hard, and her clothes were a bit rugged and dirty. She had a couple of bruises and sores but nothing serious. Very good, Naruto complimented, you lasted longer and this time you managed to beat all 25 of my clones. You certainly improved from before, my moon's eye spring rabbit. Hinata wiped away the dirt on her face and looked back at Naruto with a confident smile. I didn't come all this way to stay stagnant in my advancements. I see, Naruto said before bursting into a cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Hinata found that Naruto was no longer in sight. In fact, he was no longer anyway on the training ground. Where did he go? Hinata wondered as she went to look for him with her bloodline limit still activated. After a couple of minutes, she still couldn't determine where he went. Naruto-kun, Hinata asked while hoping to find him soon. Despite his strength, she still worried about his well-being and safety. A moment later, Hinata found a strong wind gust blow into her and knock her off her feet and on her rear end. Where did that wind come from? Hinata asked with a confused look while getting back up. That wind force was just spontaneous. It's more like from whom it came from, Naruto said as he appeared in front of her from behind one of the trees. What do you mean? Hinata asked as she deactivated her bloodline limit. Naruto took out a small piece of paper and showed it to Hinata. This special piece of paper is designed to help identify what our elemental affinities are. Elemental affinities? Hinata asked. Naruto continued, all of us have an affinity of some sort, whether it's earth, fire, wind, water or lightning. If you take this piece of paper and focus chakra into it, it'll identify what your affinity is. What's yours? Hinata questioned. Wind, Naruto replied, which is a strong and rare attack element. Very few have this element. If the paper breaks down into dust, then you're an earth type. If it burns, then it's fire. If it tears in two, then it's wind. If it gets wet, then you're a water type. If it crumples, you're a lightning type. Now take this paper and focus your chakra into it to see what element you have. After taking the paper from him, Hinata did as instructed into pouring some of her chakra into the small piece of paper. A moment later after she did, Hinata saw that the paper got wet and soaked. Looks like you're a water type, Naruto acknowledged. I was hoping that I was a wind type like you Naruto-kun, Hinata said with a hint of disappointment in her tone. Hey, Naruto said, water is still a powerful element. Besides having the capacity of dousing out fires and cooling down lava and molten steel, it can do all sorts of damages like tsunamis for example. Plus it's a most useful cleaning agent and life-sustaining element. We'd die faster without water than anything else. Hinata was thinking about what Naruto was telling her. I take it that your newfound understanding on elemental affinities was the result of your awakening knowledge in your mind, Hinata acknowledged. Naruto admitted, it is, though that happened 2 weeks ago. Since then, Hinata asked, why didn't you tell me sooner? And ruin the surprise, Naruto replied, don't think so. I should have known you'd pull something like that on me, Hinata said, but still, how far along with your understanding and training with your affinity are you? I still have a long way to go, Naruto replied, even with Kage Bushins, mastering my affinity will require much time. It'll take even longer for me since I can't make as many Kage Bushins as you, Hinata sighed. Naruto understood where Hinata was coming from. So far her limit in creating Kage Bushin were 2 before succumbing to near chakra exhaustion. Naruto warned her not to go past 2 otherwise the kinjutsu would end up killing her. Because of that, Hinata made use of Kage Bushin a rarity, at least for now. It's true that you can't make as many Kage Bushins like I can, Naruto said, but we still have a large body of water for you to get started on in practicing. Naruto pointed to the lake that was just a minute walk away from them. Besides learning about elemental affinities, Naruto said, I learned something else too. Naruto led Hinata down to the lake and stopped in front of it. He took off his sandals and instructed Hinata to do so also. What are you planning to do? Hinata asked as she removed her sandals. Grinning, Naruto went over to the water and started walking on top of it. Hinata had an expression of surprise and disbelief. You're actually walking on top of the water, Hinata said. By this time, Naruto had already learned and mastered tree walking and taught it to Hinata who also now mastered the ability to tree walking after a matter of days. Why don't you come join me? Naruto invited with his right hand extended out to her. It's no different from tree walking except now you're doing it on water. Think of your chakra as a flotation device. Focus your chakra down to your feet and walk on top of the water. Doing as instructed, Hinata focused her chakra down to her feet and attempted to walk on top of the cold lake water. She took a few steps into the lake with most of her feet on top of the water. Looking good, Hinata-chan, Naruto encouraged. Hinata smiled at Naruto, complimenting her, and her concentrated more of her chakra to her feet until she was completely standing on top of the lake water. I'm actually doing it, Naruto-kun, Hinata said excitedly. That's pretty good for a first-timer, Naruto complimented. I plunged completely into the water on my first 7 attempts at the hot springs. Hinata laughed and asked, why on earth would you attempt this jutsu at the hot springs? As a means to get me to learn this jutsu faster so as to not get burned, Naruto remarked. That was rather extreme, don't you think? Hinata remarked. It got the job done though, Naruto replied back. Besides, you have better chakra control than I do, so water walking should come as second nature to you faster than it did me. He gestured for her to come over to him. Complying, Hinata walked over to him. Reaching him, Naruto took her by the hand and led her to the middle of the lake. All right, my little spring rabbit, Naruto said, we'll be starting your elemental training today, and what better place than in the middle of the lake? Is that really such a good idea? Hinata asked worriedly. I might fall into the lake from chakra exhaustion. We're not doing any strenuous elemental training, Hinata-chan, Naruto said, we're just starting with the elementary basics for now. In another part of Konoha, Kurenai was at the dango shop with her friend Mitarashi Anko, the special Junin interrogation specialist. The two women were currently taking a break from work and conversing together at the shop. This year's Genin class graduated from the academy and yet you still chose not to become a Junin sensei, Kurenai remarked. Anko took another bite into her dango. I don't have time to deal with a pack of misfit delinquents, Anko said between biting and chewing her dango before swallowing. Besides, none of them would survive the training and hell I'd put them through. How would you know? Kurenai asked. You never took a team to see if they even possess any true potential. I don't have time to be anyone's sensei, Anko replied. Besides, my last sensei turned out to be nothing more than a psychopathic jutsu-obsessed lunatic I wish I could kill right now. Such a vengeful spirit you have there, Anko, a masculine voice said from behind Anko. The two women turned to see Kakashi standing by them with his infamous orange book in hand with his face buried in it. Kakashi, Kurenai greeted, you're back earlier than expected. How did your new Genin team make out with your bell test? They're back in the academy actually, Kakashi said without taking his face from out of the back. Kurenai and Anko weren't ignorant to Kakashi's reputation of having a long list of Genin graduates he failed for their failing his bell test. And again his new test missed the meaning behind his test. Looks like you won't have a team for another year, Kurenai said. I saved their lives to tell you the truth, Kakashi replied. Their performance during the test was rather deplorable and they had no intentions of helping and working with each other as they were out for their own success. They weren't ready for the real life as ninjas. I'm sure next year's team will prove otherwise, Kurenai said. Knowing Kakashi, Anko remarked, he'll fail them too, so don't hold your breath for even an instant. You're probably right, Anko, Kakashi replied before blushing and giggling perversely after reading an explicit scene from his Ika Ika Paradise book. Kurenai frowned at Kakashi's behavior while Anko simply paid him no mind and continued eating and drinking her sake. My eternal rival, yelled a flamboyant voice. Everyone knew that voice anywhere as they looked to see an all too familiar figure entering the establishment, Maida Guy. Guy, Kakashi asked, what brings you here? I'm here to share with you the youthful jubilation of my Genin's success in passing my test, Guy said excitedly. Tenten, Lee and Neji did far better than I expected and didn't allow the difficulty of the test to dampen their flames. So your team passed your test, Kakashi replied. I suppose congratulations are in order. What about your team? Guy inquired. I failed them, Kakashi said. They failed to see underneath the meaning of my bell test. They even failed the box lunch test I gave them as their second chance. Don't let not having a team soil your youthful fire, Guy encouraged. I'm sure your next team will do much better and pass your test. Oh, Kakashi said mockingly from his book, did you say something, Guy? Arg, Guy shouted, curse you and your hip attitude, my eternal rival. To think Guy and Kakashi have always been like this with each other while growing up, Kurenai remarked. There are some things in people who'll never change, Anko said. Speaking of change, Kurenai interjected, I'm aiming to have Hinata as my future genin pupil. You mean Neji's younger cousin, Guy acknowledged. That's right, Kurenai said sympathetically. Her clan sees her as a burden for her inability to learn their clan fighting style. Regardless of their harsh view of the young girl, I know she has potential to rise above her difficulties and prove wrong all those who think little of her. You're already attached to the young girl, I see, Kakashi remarked. So what's that to you? Kurenai asked. Just making a mental note of things, Kakashi replied with his head still buried in his book. I heard from others that the Hyuga heiress is a mostly shy and timid girl. But from what I've seen from time to time, I often question her shyness and timid nature. Why's that? Kurenai curiously, though she wondered where Kakashi was getting at. For instance, Kakashi explained, she's particularly close and fond of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jinchuriki. I'm sure by now that you're very well aware that she's been seen with Naruto almost everywhere he goes, regardless of what most of the villagers say or how she's viewed by them for doing so over the years. In spite of her timid and shy nature, her courage to openly stand up against the villagers' senseless discrimination toward Naruto is most admirable, more so than the genins I failed today and all the others I failed over the years. Yush, Guy said happily. Hinata-san's youthfulness is most radiant. I applaud her burning zeal in not to being influenced by the unyouthful spirit of those who scorn their hero. Like I said before, Kurenai remarked, she has potential and I hope that I'm given the chance to bring them out. We'll see how things turn out next year then with the next genin class, Kakashi stated. Back at the training ground, Hinata and Naruto had placed their sandals back on their feet after coming out from the lake when their physical and elemental training concluded for the day. I'm exhausted, Hinata breathed. Likewise, Naruto said with a smile, but you did pretty good today, my little moon's eye spring rabbit. Naruto moved and kissed Hinata softly on her left cheek. The gesture turned Hinata's shocked face bloody red. Naruto then realized what he did. Hinata-chan, Naruto panicked. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. I mean. Hinata touched the spot on her face where Naruto kissed. A moment later, Hinata giggled excitedly with her face still red. He kissed me. Hinata shouted in her mind happily. Naruto-kun actually kissed me for the very first time. That means there's a chance that in the future we'll become something more than friends. Hinata turned to Naruto and assured, I'm not angry at you for kissing my face, Naruto-kun. To be honest, I really enjoyed it. Naruto sighed in relief, wanting to know where the impulse to want to kiss her came from. Swallowing her own fear and nervousness, Hinata went over and kissed Naruto's right cheek in return. Now it was Naruto's turn to blush and touch the spot where Hinata kissed him, realizing that was the first time Hinata kissed him. Now I know what it feels like to be kissed, Naruto grinned, it's a great feeling. Hinata giggled again before reaching and taking hold of Naruto's hand. Let's go back and get something to eat, Hinata suggested. Great idea, Naruto agreed, let's get Sandaime Jisen to treat us out to lunch. The pair left the training ground with their hand and fingers entwined together. It was a while before they reached the Hokage Tower, but they got there nonetheless. Upon arriving, they stepped over to the secretary and told her that they were here to see the Hokage. The secretary called and informed Hiruzen of his visitors, and he told her that they were allowed up into his office. Happy that the Hokage had time for them, Hinata and Naruto hurried on their way to see Hiruzen. When they entered through the door of his office, they found Hiruzen sitting at his desk going over some documents among the many other documents on his desk. "Hey Jisun," Naruto greeted, "are you busy? Hinata-chan and I were wondering if you'd treat us to ramen today." "It's more like you were hoping he'd treat us, Naruto-kun," Hinata thought to herself. Hiruzen looked at the two youths in front of him and chuckled, "Well, I suppose no harm could come out of it. Besides, I'm in need of a break anyway." "Sweet," Naruto said excitedly before Sandaime stood up from his chair and went over to Hinata and Naruto. "Well now," Hiruzen said, "let's be on our way then." Meanwhile, Sasuke was still roaming about the streets of Konoha when Sasuke-kun. Sasuke just kept walking, not wanted to pay heed to the one calling to him. "Sasuke-kun." The girl named Sakura finally caught up to Sasuke. The boy in turn had no choice but to confront her as he turned to face her. "Yes, Sakura," Sasuke replied, "what do you want?" "Well, Sasuke-kun," Sakura started, "I was hoping that." Sasuke's eyes caught sight of something that caught his attention, which cut Sakura off. Sakura turned around to see what it was and found that it was Sandaime walking together with Naruto and Hinata. All three of them were heading toward Sasuke and Sakura. "It's Sandaime-sama," Sakura acknowledged, "and he's with Naruto and Hinata." Sasuke said nothing in reply. "Hello there, you two," Hiruzen greeted with his grandfather-like smile. "Is everything all right with you two?" "Fine," Sasuke replied plainly. "Everything's great, Sandaime-sama," Sakura said. "Where were you going?" "I'm out on my well-deserved break for lunch," Sandaime said. "Naruto and Hinata are here to accompany me. Would you both like to join us too?" "I'd love to," Sakura said excitedly. Seeing the chance to be near Hinata, Sasuke accepted. "I'll accept your invitation." Sasuke moved to be next to Hinata. The Uchiha turned to look at Naruto, who in turn resisted the urge to frown at him. Sakura hurried to stand next to Sasuke. "Well, let's be on our way then," Hiruzen suggested. The group then made their way over to Ichiraku. While on the way, Sasuke turned to Hinata and said, "I was hoping to run into you earlier. I stopped by but was told that you weren't home." "No," Hinata said, "I left after my Jiyuken training was over." "And how's that going?" Sasuke asked. Hinata lowered her head. "Not so well. I'm still having trouble understanding my clan's style, though I made some progress." "It's better than no progress," Sasuke replied. "What you obtained from it is an accomplishment by itself. Be proud of your current success, if that much." "Hinata. Thank you," Hinata said, trying to act as meek and shy as possible. Sakura looked at Hinata with jealousy and resentment, even though Hinata did nothing significant to really gain Sasuke's attention, or so Sakura believed. What could you possibly see in her, Sasuke-kun? Sakura wondered with a frown. Naruto saw the look at Sakura's face but chose not to give any comment about it. "Hey Jisun?" Naruto asked. "Yes, Naruto," Hiruzen replied. "The author to that Ika Ika Paradise book was one of your students, right?" Naruto asked. "The one called Jiraiya?" "Yes," Hiruzen admitted, "he's also one of the 3 Sanins." "Who are the other 2? Naruto asked. "I'd have thought by now that subject would have been covered in class by Iruka," Hiruzen remarked. "It was," Sakura said before giving Naruto a dirty look. 2 days ago, in fact. Naruto happened to have been cutting class that day. He was given detention yesterday after Iruka-sensei busted him trying to peep in the women's bathhouse that same afternoon he cut class. The pervert. Hinata recalled that day, acknowledging that she too was in the same bathhouse that day when the incident took place. She and the other girls were wondering why they heard Iruka smacking and yelling at someone over the fence. No way. Hinata gasped and wondered with a hands over her mouth with a deep blush on her face, was Naruto-kun trying to peep at me? Iruka-sensei was exaggerating. Naruto replied, I was only trying to do more research in how to make my jutsu more effective. I just needed to study live young and mature beautiful specimens in order to do so. But I was careless and ended up getting caught by Iruka-sensei. Hiruzen saw how Naruto was acting and even talking similar to Jiraiya. Sakura attempted to smack Naruto across his head. Naruto quickly ducked, which caused Sakura to end up missing his head in the process. That was when Hiruzen saw how Sakura was like a reflection of Tsunade in terms of her violent temper. You're such a freaking hentai. Sakura barked before turning to Hinata, I can't understand how you could stand being around him. Naruto-kun isn't a bad person, Sakura-san, Hinata defended, true he has his faults but who doesn't? I'm sure Sakura wouldn't have mind if it was Sasuke that was trying to peep at her, Naruto remarked. Sakura blinked for a moment and thought about what Naruto actually said. A moment later, a blush appeared on her face. Point proven, Naruto remarked with a victorious smile. Sasuke snarled at Naruto for using him to prove his point, as perverted as it was. Sasuke-kun wouldn't do such a thing, Sakura defended, he has more sense of class and dignity. Unlike you. Whatever, Naruto shrugged. If I ever catch you trying to peep at me, Naruto, Sakura warned, I'll beat you to within an inch of your life. Yep. Hiruzen thought, very much like Tsunade. I told you, Naruto retorted, I needed to study live young and mature beautiful specimens. That did not entail you being one of them. Plus, you're too masculine and flat-chested to give me any inspiration. Why you? Sakura yelled murderously as she chased after Naruto, who in turn laughed and ran from her. Come back here, Naruto, Sakura screamed, I'll make you pay for insulting my beauty. Hiruzen sighed to himself, seeing how Naruto and Sakura acted too much like his past students. Even the way they interacted was similar. At the very least, Sasuke smirked, the Dobi did me a favor in getting Sakura to chase after him and leaving Hinata behind. Turning to Hinata, Sasuke asked, are you really sure about what you said in not being bothered by what Naruto was caught doing 2 days ago? He said that it was for his jutsu, Hinata replied, if it meant strengthening it, then. You mean his Waroku no jutsu, Sasuke interjected, I'm sure he was using that as a cover to avoid getting in more trouble. But it, Hinata stuttered. It what? Sasuke inquired. It knocked you and Sandaime-sama unconscious, if I recalled correctly, Hinata meekly reminded. Naruto's jutsu proved to be a most effective instrument, especially when he said that he could have killed you both and the other males if he were serious after knocking all of you out. Both Hiruzen and Sasuke frowned and lowered their heads in being reminded of their most shameful moment. I'll never hear the end of this, Hiruzen mental sighed, even after 3 years. Naruto baka, Sasuke thought, I recall him making me look like a fool in front of Hinata and everyone else twice that day. There must be a way to resist that jutsu. As for Sandaime, he could only wonder what the unknown future had in store for him in the next genin class that was to graduate next year. 10 months later, Hinata, age 13, was in her room assembling everything she needed. After seeing that all of the food and other required necessities were gathered together, she took and opened the scroll Naruto, age 13, prepared for her in advance. She used it to seal away everything she assembled in her room. When that was done, she rolled the scroll close and tied it before hiding it inside her Eskimo-like jacket. Seeing that she was ready to go, she left her room and made a quick pace through the house to meet up with Naruto, age 13. On the way she passed by Hanabi, age 8, who was walking from the opposite from her. You're sure in a hurry this early in the morning, Nisan, Hanabi acknowledged. I'm, reeing to meet up with Naruto-kun, Hinata replied between her stuttering. I see, Hanabi replied, though I still don't understand what you see in him, Nisan. Why so? Hinata asked as turned to face her younger sister. He's not a prodigy, Hanabi explained, or strong as Neji, age 14. He has the poorest grades and is the dead last year class from what this Uchiha Sasuke, age 13, once told me when he came by here some time ago. And everyone knows this Naruto is a troublemaker and he's constantly getting into trouble. I'm even more confused as to why father, despite knowing about Naruto's infamous reputation, even allows you to associate with such a hooligan, let alone hang out with him from time to time. I fear that your time with him will have a bad influence on you, Nisan. You may start acting like him. The elders, as you already know, don't approve of your friendship with him. What Hanabi didn't mention was that frequently she'd hide behind walls, crates, and other objects large enough to conceal her appearance whenever she was secretly eavesdropping or spying on Hinata and Naruto whenever he came by to spend time with Hinata. Sometimes she would try to move and hide behind closer objects in order to hear what they were talking about. So far Hanabi wasn't able to find out much about the things they'd talk about, and oftentimes they would move on and head someplace else before she could really hear anything they were talking about. Hanabi would try to study Naruto while trying to ascertain whether he was all of the negative things she heard people say about him. She never once felt any form of hostility or danger from him as she overheard some of the things the villagers said of him. She couldn't understand why almost everyone in Konoha hated Naruto and treated him harshly. True, he pulls a lot of pranks and jokes, but none of them were ever life-threatening to anyone. And where do you stand in all this? Hinata asked. I doubt what I say would matter anyway, Hanabi remarked. You wouldn't listen regardless and you would still choose to be with Naruto anyway. I will admit, Hinata replied meekly, I never thought you were that attentive to me. I learned to be mindful of things that take place on around me, Hanabi said, something father taught me. But tell me, why do you choose Naruto over Sasuke? I know this Sasuke person really likes you and a few times he even asked me a few things about you. Did he? Hinata asked, rather surprised by that revelation, and, what did you tell him? If you must know, Hanabi replied, I told him that if he's so interested in you to go ask you his questions himself. I see, Hinata said, holding back a giggle that wanted to escape her throat. I appreciate your concern for me, but I must be on my way now. But Nisan, Hanabi was about to say something further, but Hinata turned and ran off from the manor. She never answered my question, Hanabi said to herself before she turned and walked deeper into the house. Why does Nisan like Naruto so much? And why is father willing to overlook Naruto's faults and ill-viewed reputation and allow him to even associate with us? I don't understand. Meanwhile, Hinata saw that was she about to be running late, so she quickened the pace. She was making good timing when Hinata stopped and turned to see Sasuke walking and making his way over to her. No, Hinata sighed, not now. Sasuke-san, Hinata greeted. Smiling, Sasuke said, since you're on your way to the academy, how about we walk and talk together? I could use the company. I suppose, Hinata replied as Sasuke smoothly walked and stepped up next to her at her left. Sasuke and Hinata started walking towards the academy while Hinata's mind was racing with many thoughts in her mind. This isn't good, Hinata thought, if I don't think of something fast I'll. Sasuke-kun. Two female voices yelled out. Sasuke sighed and grumbled under his breath, not those two again. Hinata looked to see Ino, age 13, and Sakura, age 13, running and racing to catch up with Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, wait for me, Ino shouted as she quickened her pace. Out of my way, Ino pig, Sakura yelled while trying to shove Ino out of her way. Fat chance forehead girl, Ino retorted as she shoved Sakura away from her. The two girls caught up to Sasuke and Hinata. Sasuke-kun, Ino asked as charming and feminine as possible, why don't we walk together to class? No way, Sakura argued, I'm going to be walking with Sasuke-kun. Seeing this momentary distraction, Hinata looked to see a collared black cat run by. Deciding to follow it, Hinata went after the cat, causing the cat to run off from her. A moment later, Sasuke turned to see Hinata running from them in a different direction. Where is she going? Sasuke asked himself before leaving Ino and Sakura to argue with each other before realizing that Sasuke was no longer there with them but following after Hinata. What does he see in her? Ino asked aloud, I'm a clan heiress too. Shut up, pig, Sakura replied, I'm someone special too. In your own world, your forehead, Ino shot back as she and Sakura chased after Sasuke. The Uchiha looked and saw Hinata turn and run into an alley. He followed after her and soon entered the same alley she ran into. He found Hinata trying to encourage a cute-looking young black kitten standing on top of a tall fence to come to her. You ran all this way for a small cat? Sasuke asked skeptically. It might belong to someone, Hinata said. I thought I'd retrieve and return the cat. Sakura and Ino entered the alley and found Sasuke and Hinata standing in front of the tall wooden fence that blocked any passage through the alley. Here, kitty, Hinata said sweetly with her arms extended toward the feline, it's all right. You can come to me. I'll take you back to your owner safely, I promise. The black kitten meowed before it turned and jumped to the other side of the fence and ran off. It got away, Hinata said a bit sadly. I really thought I had her that time. You wasted Sasuke-kun's time for a cat, Sakura asked with a scolding tone. Hinata lowered her head meekly. That's enough out of you, Sakura, Sasuke replied as he turned away from the fence. It's not Hinata's fault. I chose to follow after her. Besides, we need to hurry on our way to class now. We're about to be late. Seeing what Sasuke was talking about, the four of them made their way out of the alley and toward the academy. The said black kitten jumped back over the fence and walked out of the alley to see the group heading away from her. The kitten then ran off in another direction. 30 minutes later, outside the village walls in the forest. She's running late, Naruto said as he stood at the bottom base of the waterfall. It's not like Hinata to be late like this. I wonder if something came up. Naruto waited for another 8 minutes. He was about to get up and investigate what happened when his eyes caught sight of a black kitten approaching him. Curiously, he went over toward the kitten as the female feline meowed to him. Hey there, Naruto asked, what are you doing out here? When he got close enough to the kitten, he was about to reach down to pick it up when the kitten burst into a cloud of smoke. Huh? Naruto said confusedly. When the smoke cleared, it revealed to be Hinata standing in the spot the kitten was. Hinata-chan, Naruto said happily, what happened? I was getting worried. It was hard getting here without getting caught, Hinata said. I ran into one obstacle and then another. What were they? Naruto asked. Hanabi kept pressing the matter about why I like you so much before I was able to get away from her. Hinata explained, I had a run-in with Sasuke who wanted to be my escort to the academy before Ino and Sakura appeared wanting to accompany Sasuke to class. How did you get away from them? Naruto asked. I found a kitten and followed after it into an alley. Catching it, I quickly made a cage cushion of myself before I leapt to the top of the fence blocking the alley with the kitten. Letting the kitten go to the other side of the fence, I hinged into the same kitten and stood top of the fence just as Sasuke arrived. My clone acted quickly in acting like she was trying to retrieve and bring me back home to my owner. I ran off and hid myself until I was in the clear to leave by means of another route and make my way over here where you were waiting. But I had to stay in that kitten form while avoiding being spotted. Naruto laughed and applauded Hinata's ingenuity. That was so cool how you got away from them, my sly moon's eye spring rabbit. Naruto cheered, you're becoming more like me every day. Yeah, Hinata replied, that's what Hanabi said. I'm still wondering how you talked me into cutting class today just so you can spend the day with me and do something better with your time other than listening to Iruka-sensei ever so interesting lectures, Naruto interjected. If father finds out about this, Hinata said worriedly. He won't, Naruto assured, this is our cut day, the day we get to cut class and do whatever we want so long we don't get caught doing so. I pulled stunts like this through the year whenever I wanted to skip out on class without getting caught when there was something I wanted to train myself in that required more of my time and energy. Besides, I believe I told you already that Iruka-sensei's planned lectures that I managed to look into yesterday won't involve any spars or any physical training. Just reviews of about the history of our late Yondaime and how he brought about Kyuubi's defeat. And that doesn't interest you as something worth reviewing? Hinata asked. Did it do likewise with you seeing that we're both here now? Naruto shot back. Fair comment. Hinata shrugged before reaching into her jacket and pulling the rolled up tide scroll out. In any case, there's no turning back now. We might as well get our proclaimed cut day started. You sound more excited about this than I do, Naruto teased. I just hope we don't get caught, Hinata said. Relax, Naruto assured, I'll make sure nothing happens to you. You promise? Hinata asked for reassurance. I give you my word, Naruto said confidently, and I never go back on my word. It's my Nindo. Datbeo. Having his reassurance, Hinata opened the scroll and laid it on the ground. Standing in front of it, she made the required hand sign. Kai, Hinata said as the scroll burst into a cloud of smoke and unsealed its contents. Meanwhile, everyone was in class reviewing the notes Iruka was giving them about Yondaime and his time reigning as the Hokage before Kyuubi's attack on the village. Hinata was sitting at her desk going over her notes while Naruto, now wearing a ridiculous bright orange jumpsuit with blue and white linings around it with a pair of goggles around his head, was resting his head on the desk, sleeping. After another 20 minutes, Naruto, Iruka yelled. Naruto woke up instantly and stood up from his desk and yelled, I'm innocent. I swear I wasn't peeping and sneaking into the women's bathhouse again. Everyone burst out laughing at Naruto's reaction as he looked around and realized where he was. At least we know where your mind is, Naruto, Iruka remarked. Now you mind explaining what we the class were discussing? Something about Yondaime and Iwa, and how he slaughtered a whole army of Iwa ninjas by himself in less than a second, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head, though I don't quite understand how a mere human like Yondaime could kill a Biju, let alone the strongest of them. I know Yondaime was a powerful Hokage and everything, but it doesn't seem to make sense to me whenever I think about it. Something about that story doesn't quite add up. Iruka hid his nervous expression while thinking of something to say. Could Naruto be on the verge of figuring out the village's darkest secret? Iruka wondered worriedly. Naruto, Kiba, age 13, said, little ever makes sense to you. Besides, I'm sure you were sleeping in class when that part of your question was covered. Before Naruto could retort. That's right, Iruka said, piggyback riding on Kiba's statement. Next time stay awake for my class and you'd probably understand the village's history more than you do now. Whatever, Naruto snorted as he sat back down on his seat and turned to look at Sasuke. Sasuke grunted as his response to Naruto. Don't act like you're all cool and crap, Naruto said. Naruto, Iruka warned, one more outburst from you and I'll have you on bathroom duty. Don't you mean bathhouse duty? Naruto asked jokingly. No, you moron, Iruka yelled with his face reddened. Everyone was laughing again. Idiot, Sasuke muttered. Just sit down and pay attention, Iruka said after calming down. Seeing that Naruto was done causing another ruckus, Iruka resumed the review with the class. I think I played my part convincingly, Naruto thought, and Hinata is doing likewise also. Back at the waterfall deep in the forest, Naruto, wearing only his black swimming trunks, was standing at the base of the waterfall with 6 of his kage bushins, was catching his breath while they were standing in front of the falling waters. Hinata, wearing her white two-piece bathing suit, was standing on the water several feet behind Naruto and his clones. She was wearing her swim's clothes underneath her regular clothes earlier before she left her house, thus she didn't have to waste time putting them on after arriving at the waterfall. She simply had to remove her regular clothes and sandals. It was likewise with Naruto and his swim trunks. Off to the side at the shore of the waterfall was a prepared picnic site with their drinks, lunches, towels and folded clothes were. A large comforter blanket was opened and lying on ground where their belongings were. A moment later, Naruto dispelled his clones and absorbed the experience his clones had gained for him. That was really good, Naruto-kun, Hinata cheered, you managed to split the waterfall that time. Naruto turned and gave Hinata a large smile. I've been practicing that for some time now, Naruto said, it's only now I've managed to finally get the job done. You came a long way, Hinata replied, but I still have a way to go in mastering my water manipulation. But you made great progress too, Naruto encouraged, far more than you thought you would. At the rate you're going, you'll be a true spring water rabbit. Manipulating some of the water around them, Hinata levitated it over to her and shaped it into 2 bunny ears over her head while making a bunny tail with the rest of the remaining water. Aren't I already a spring rabbit? Hinata joked. A delicious looking one at that, I might add, Naruto said with a lecherous smile as he eyed Hinata up and down. As a young teenager, Naruto saw that Hinata was developing in a beautiful girl and her were developing between B and C cup, which was surprising even for him. With regards to her body, she had a figure many girls their age would die for, and her secret training with Naruto only served to help shape it all the more. Hinata's face was burning crimson at Naruto's behavior and how he was studying her. True, Hinata admitted to herself, Naruto-kun is a pervert, there's no denying that fact. But he never had me do anything I was never comfortable with or bring more trouble for me than it was worth. As Hinata was looking at Naruto, she too saw how Naruto have changed and developed over the course of time. No longer was he that slim undernourished orphan who ate only ramen or whatever else he could eat. His time practicing and training vigorously with a better diet plan really did works on his now built well-toned yet still developing body, and his seals Inryoku Fujin Gravity Seal, Chakra Sokubaku Fujin Chakra Restraint Seal, served to add to the strength and stamina his body radiated and carried. Still, Hinata thought, there were times, secretly, wished that I could just. Hinata, Naruto called out, Earth to Hinata-chan. Hinata snapped out of her dazed daydreaming and looked back at Naruto. Were you dreaming of me? Naruto teased. Hinata's red face clearly confirmed Naruto's suspicions. I hope I was everything you were dreaming of in whatever fantasy you were having, Naruto remarked. Naruto-kun behave, Hinata giggled. Well, Naruto said, changing the subject, it's time for your training session. Nodding, Hinata prepared for her training as she walked and moved away from the waterfall. Clearing her mind off all distractions, she assumed a Jiyuken stance on top of the water and started practicing the water manipulation stances that Naruto helped her learn. The moves themselves weren't typical water manipulating stances that most water-type ninjas used. These stances were more like a hybrid blend of Tai Chi and ballet dancing with a mix of Jiyuken. For the past 10 months, Hinata had been practicing hard in her water manipulation. While doing so, she experimented on creating new water battle moves, both offensive and defensive types, and combining them with her Jiyuken. That was proving to be a difficult task over the first couple of months, as a backlash effect would occur whenever she failed to fuse her Jiyuken and water manipulation with Byakugan. In time though, she was seeing signs that her perseverance and consistency were starting to pay off as she was making pleasing progress in her efforts. For half of their elemental training over the months, Naruto had focused on Hinata strengthening her stances, so that she could withstand the backlash effect of failing to fuse Jiyuken and water manipulation, while at the same time, be able to control the amount of water she used. Naruto explained that using elemental manipulation and Jiyuken would be very difficult to pull off, since it was almost like trying to do two things at the same time. But he was sure that in time, Hinata would be able to pull it off. Naruto's own training was far from easy. He spent nearly every day practicing his wind manipulation, but slowly and surely he was making progress and improving his strengthening the use of his elemental affinity, along with strengthening his chakra control with the help of his chakra Sokubaku Fujin. As Naruto watched Hinata gracefully maneuver her body with such fluidity, with the river waters levitating and dancing around her body as she manipulated it, he couldn't help but admire her beauty, strength and self-confidence she developed over the years. If only she would do that kind of water dancing naked under a full moon in a starlit night, Naruto wondered, with a blush and perverted giggle escaping his mouth. After another 25 minutes, Hinata smoothly concluded her training and took a breath. "How was I?" Hinata asked as she turned to look back at Naruto. "Mind if I get your performance on DVD?" Naruto joked. Hinata giggled with her cheeks reddened. "So I did good then," Hinata figured. "Awesome is more like it, Datbayo." Naruto replied, "Come on. Let's take a lunch break." Hinata agreed and walked over to their picnic site. Reaching the comforter blanket, Naruto reached down and retrieved both his and Hinata's towels. The pair dried themselves up before sitting on their comforter blanket together. "This is great," Naruto said happily, "the best hooky I ever played." "For what it's worth," Hinata said as she got their lunches out from her basket, "I'm happy I decided to follow along with you." "I know," Naruto agreed, "because you're my girl." Naruto smacked his mouth shut, realizing what came out of his mouth. By this time, Hinata herself was shocked and surprised by Naruto's declaration, and the color on her face testified to that. "Stupid," Naruto mentally berated, "why did you have to say something so cheesy like that?" "I'm Naruto-kun's girl," Hinata thought excitedly. "Naruto-kun called me his girl. Does that mean that I'm his girlfriend officially now?" Naruto was about to say something when, "Naruto-kun," Hinata asked hesitantly with hope present in her voice, Do you, really think of me, as, your girl?" Naruto sighed, seeing no point in cover it up. "Hinata-chan," Naruto said, "I know that we're close friends and have been for a few years now. I would be lying if I said that there weren't time I wish we could be more than just friends. To be honest, I always wanted to ask you to be my girlfriend, but back then I never worked up the courage to do so, in spite of that fact that I knew you always liked me." Hinata felt her heart beating hard and racing with anticipation and hope. Even if they did get caught and in trouble playing hooky later, for Hinata, it would be worth it if her expectations for what Naruto was about to ask her came true. Hinata-chan, Naruto asked, will you be my girlfriend? Hinata didn't quite hear him clearly as he asked the question too quickly with his words blurred today. Huh, Hinata muttered. Seeing his mistake, Naruto corrected himself and asked again, will you be my girlfriend? For Hinata, it was like Naruto proposed to her. She couldn't remember the last time she was this happy. I'd love to, Hinata accepted happily with a few joyful tears coming down her face. Yada. Naruto cheered excitedly before embracing an equally happy Hinata, whose face burned hotly from feeling Naruto's body against her skin. Naruto too blushed upon feeling Hinata's soft body and skin against his. He had to pull away, fearing his perverted nature would get the better of him. This has been the best day of my life, Naruto-kun, Hinata said as she passed Naruto his sandwich. Best day of your life so far, Naruto grinned as he and Hinata ate lunch together as an official couple for the first time. Later that day, at the academy, lunch break was over and Naruto was walking down the hallway mumbling about how he just narrowly passed his exam a while ago. It wasn't a perfect grade like Sasuke, but that was the appearance he wanted to accomplish. After all, he had to maintain his facade as the dead last of his class. Soon though, Naruto looked to see Mizuki, one of the Chunin Academy senseis, making his way over to him. Hey Naruto, Mizuki greeted with a friendly tone. Naruto smiled and greeted, hello Mizuki-sensei. I heard from Iruka that you actually passed your test, Mizuki said, even though it was only by so much from what he told me. Hey, Naruto replied, I passed and that's all that matters. It's just another stepping stone in my quest to be Hokage someday. I know, Mizuki said, you told me and everyone this before. You are aware that the Genin exams will be held tomorrow, yes? Of course, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. I didn't forget, though I hate to admit that it'll be my third attempt at trying to pass that test again. You shouldn't worry too much Naruto, Mizuki encouraged, I'm sure you'll do better and pass this time around. You really believe I stand a chance? Naruto asked. You know Iruka-sensei isn't the forgiving type when it comes to those exams. Perhaps not, Mizuki agreed, but don't sell yourself short yet. Just give it your all and I'm sure that'll be enough for you to pass and finally become one of Konoha's genins. Thanks for the vote of confidence Mizuki-sensei, Naruto smiled, just you wait. I'll pass with flying colors. Datbeo. With that said, Naruto left Mizuki alone in the hallway and made his way to his next destination. Do you really believe in Naruto-kun being able to pass and become a genin? Hinata asked, coming out from hiding behind a nearby staircase. Mizuki turned and found Hinata approaching him. Hinata, Mizuki greeted, how long were you there? I was heading back to class when I heard you encouraging Naruto-kun to do his very best in next week's Genin exams, Hinata explained. Very few believes Naruto can pull it off and achieve his goal in becoming Genin. Well, Mizuki said, he's no prodigy like Sasuke or your cousin Neji, he doesn't have book smarts like your classmate Sakura. But he has a strong drive that keeps him going regardless of his many failings. You shouldn't worry yourself too much about him, Hinata, Shikamaru, age 13, said as he and Choji, age 13, approached her from behind. It's just troublesome to do so. Whether or not he passes the Genin exams this time around depends entirely on his performance, much more so than his perseverance, regardless how admirable his determination is. Hinata sighed lowly, knowing that Shikamaru was right in his statement. You didn't have to be that harsh about it, Shikamaru, Choji said. She's obviously concerned for her friend's career as a future ninja. Well, Shikamaru replied, I just don't want Hinata to build up any false hopes or have too high of expectations for what might or might not happen. It's the sad reality of things in this life we live in. You truly are a source for comfort, Choji remarked cynically. As much as I'd like for us to stick around and discuss Naruto's uncertain future, Mizuki said, I think it would be best if the three of you hurried on your way back to class. Iruka would be rather upset with me if he believes me to be the reason for why you guys are late for his class. Nodding, the three hurried on their way back to class. 13 minutes later, all of the students were conversing with each other while waiting for Iruka to enter the classroom. A minute later, sorry for the delay. I got held up taking care of something at the last minute, Iruka apologized as he entered the classroom. Everyone gradually quieted down as he went over to his desk. Everyone's back, I see, Iruka said as he stood behind his desk and looked around and found that everyone was sitting at their seats, almost everyone. Has anyone seen Naruto? Iruka asked with annoyance clearly present in his tone. Maybe he decided to drop out and start the class all over, one of the students remarked. Some of the students snickered, which only served to annoy Iruka further. What are you up to now, Naruto-kun? Hinata wondered. An hour later, at the Hokage Tower, Hiruzen was relaxing in his private study, not having to do some much paperwork. He decided to take the time to practice his calligraphy as a means to enjoy his current free time. Soon though, his once free time was interrupted. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen sighed, seeing that his once peaceful day was going to end all but peacefully. Hokage-sama. Come quickly. It's an emergency. Two Chunins ran into his private study as he turned to face them. What now? Hiruzen asked with annoyance in his voice, is Naruto causing trouble again? It's the Hokage monument, one of the Chunin said, he's vandalizing it with paint, even now as we speak. Hiruzen sighed again as he puffed out some from his tobacco pipe. Having no other choice, he got up and placed on his Hokage robes and hat before making his way to the roof of the Hokage Tower. Upon arriving with a few over Chunins and Junins, they found Naruto on one of the scaffold brazenly painting and writing large graffiti all over the monument. On Senju Hashirama's head, who was also known as the Shodai, there was a painting of the Senju clan seal insignia and a spiral painted next to it. And all over the Shodai's face were paintings of spirals. On Senju Tobarama's face, once known as Nadaime, were a graffiti writings that blatantly stated, never scored, celibate, and, never peeped. On Hiruzen's head, there was red paint drawn down both ends of his nose with a blush that was painting on his cheeks. His face also had graffiti writings that said, pervy old monkey. On Namikaze Minato's face, once known as Yondaime, were black whisker markings painted on his cheeks with a statement that said, the Uzumaki will rise and become the second coming of Yondaime, and surpass all of the previous Hokages. By this time, everyone in the village was seeing the stunt. Naruto was pulling in front of everyone. The question was, how was he able to do so without anyone finding out up until now? Naruto, one of the ninjas on the Hokage Tower, yelled, what the hell do you think you're doing? You blind stupid. Naruto yelled back with a large cheese smile, I'm giving this old monument a new makeover. It's been in great need of one and I'm just the one to deliver it. You have any idea how much trouble you're in? Another ninja yelled. Like that would stop me, Naruto retorted with grin never leaving his face. It's more fun doing this here than listening to any crappy lecture I get from Iruka-sensei. As if on cue, Iruka appeared on the roof of the tower where Sandaime and the other ninjas were. Hokage-sama, Iruka said with a bow, 1,000 apologies. Naruto was reported missing and not returned to class this early this afternoon, and I've been looking all over for him. It's only now that I've found him committing this act of vandalism while cutting class. You and everyone else, I might add, Hiruzen replied calmly. Let me deal with this, Iruka said as he turned and looked up at Naruto. Naruto turned and looked down at Iruka, staring back in him angrily. You're in a world of trouble for cutting class again and vandalizing the Hokage monument. Catch me first. Naruto laughed as he leapt off the scaffold with the cans of paint in hand and made his way to the surface from scaffold to scaffold. Iruka and the other ninjas took to flight to chase after Naruto. Reaching the streets, Naruto started running from the ninjas after him, while still holding the cans of paint. Get back here, Naruto. One the ninjas ordered. Naruto just laughed and continued running while hopping over fences of backyards, gardens and alleys. Getting to one alley, the group of ninja lost sight of him. Where did that scornful child go? The lead Junin asked aloud. They looked around and saw Naruto nowhere in sight. Just then, paint fell and spilled over them from above. Suckers, Naruto laughed before tossing the emptied cans of paint at them and running off. Damn you, Kyuubi Gaki, one of the Junins cursed. Naruto ran off with the same ninjas after him. A minute later, he turned, he cornered to his right and hid behind another, his camouflaging cloak, blending in with the wall as the paint-covered ninjas ran and passed him by with realizing it. Get back here, the lead Junin ordered. Naruto grinned victoriously, removing the camouflaging cloak off himself, and said, that was so easy. A second later, hey Naruto, Iruka screamed from behind Naruto. The blonde jumped and turned to see Iruka. The hell? Naruto yelled, how do you be finding me? Never mind that, Iruka retorted, you got a lot of nerve cutting my class again. By now that shouldn't come as a surprise, Naruto remarked. Iruka's right eye started twitching as he felt the urge to repeatedly smack Naruto across the head build up. I'll deal with you being punishment later, Iruka stated. Right now I have a class to teach, and like it or not you're coming with me. Before Naruto could argue, Iruka grabbed and dragged Naruto back to academy. Meanwhile, Hinata and Naruto were enjoying a nice swim together in the river when they decided that it was time to clean up and return back. The fact that their cage bushins didn't dispelling told them that everything was going good so far. This was the most fun I had in a long time, Hinata smiled. Thanks for a lovely day, Naruto-kun. I aim to please, my moon's eye spring rabbit, Naruto grinned as he approached and stood in front of her. The water level they were standing in was a few inches beneath their waists. He stood facing her. Hinata felt heat building up within her being as Naruto looked ready to do what she believed he was going to do, with the roaring waterfall ever so audible in the background. No way, Hinata thought, is he really going to? I mean, I did agree to become his girlfriend and... Naruto felt surprisingly nervous for what he desired to do at this point. Idiot! Naruto's mind screamed, just kiss her already. She wants this as much as you do. So go for it. Seeing the looking on his face, Hinata asked, Naruto-kun, are you Alrig? Hinata was cut off when Naruto suddenly embraced and kissed her on her lips for the very first time. Her eyes widened from both shock and excitement when she felt Naruto's lips against hers. He's kissing me, Hinata screamed happily in her mind. I'm being held and kissed by Naruto-kun. She felt like she was in a dream. Everything seemed too good to be true. That thought, however, was knocked to the side when she felt Naruto's arms wrapped around her waist and held her a little tighter to his still wet figure. While fighting the urge to faint, Hinata embraced and wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and returned the kiss with the same amount of passion as their kiss grew deeper, with their tongues waltzing together. Despite how cold the water was, Hinata felt completely warm within herself. For Naruto, it was an amazing experience. He read from many Ika Ika Paradise books how great kissing a beautiful girl was and even what styles of kissing were used, one of which he was trying out and using. But he never in his life thought it would be and feel this good. On the same note though, it took every bit of self-control he had within himself to keep from getting carried away with the position he was in with Hinata, as he was starting to feel more hormonal than he counted on. The feeling of her smooth and wet body against his was driving him mad, and he was so tempted to do a little more. However, not wanting ruin the best moment he was having with his new girlfriend, Naruto exercised self-restraint. It wasn't until after another 4 minutes when the couple finally, but reluctantly pulled their lips away from each other in order to catch their breaths. "Wow!" Naruto exclaimed with a blush of his own on his face, "so that's how you taste like Naruto-kun." Hinata giggled before resting her head on his shoulder with her arms still wrapped around his neck. "This was a perfect day. You made me so happy. Thank you." "No, Hinata," Naruto said, "thank you. If anything, I don't deserve a maiden as beautiful and elegant as you. Too bad this moment can't last longer. We have to go back and soon." "I know," Hinata admitted with disappointment present in her tone, "but let's bask in this for just another minute." Naruto agreed as he continued to hold Hinata in his arms. Soon though, the couple made moves to clean themselves up and return back to the village. While doing so, they had to make certain that they didn't leave any loose ends behind. 20 minutes later, back at the academy, everyone was standing on line in class performing a henge test Iruka had everyone do on account of Naruto cutting class in the middle of the day. Everyone but Hinata gave hateful glares at Naruto, but he simply shrugged them off and told everyone that he didn't give a damn. Soon though, Naruto, being last in line, went up next and was told to do a henge. Grinning, Naruto gathered some of his reserved chakra and performed his jutsu as he burst into a cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, "Iruka-sensei," Naruto said sensually and with an arousal tone as the naked big blonde young woman he transformed into with both hands on both with very little smoke cover her privates. "Can you give me a more pleasurable form of examination, please? Or would you prefer to watch while I perform it myself?" Gawking at the sexy young naked female, Naruto turned into with what was spoken. Iruka, Sasuke and the other males present flew backwards from nasal blood loss. Naruto changed back and burst into a fit of laughter. Hinata shook her head with closed eyes at Naruto's performance while the rest of the girls in class were seething bloodlust at Naruto, especially for the irritating fact that he could still get that kind of reaction from Sasuke. "That was so easy," Naruto, laughing, "it's so fun knocking you guys out like this. Don't use that absurd hentai jutsu in my class and learn to take me more serious." Iruka yelled at Naruto, in a fit of rage after regaining consciousness faster than Naruto expected. After a few moments, all of the other boys woke up and were unhappy about how Naruto caught them all off guard again. "The rest of you may go home now," Iruka said. "Naruto, stick around. You're not off the hook, not after the stunt you pulled on the monument." All of the other students got their things and left the class. Sasuke turned and gave Naruto a hate-filled death glare. "Damn you, Naruto," Sasuke thought angrily, "you caught me off guard with your Waroke no Jutsu again and made me look like a fool in front of Hinata, again. Do you miss Naruto-chan, Sasuke-kun?" Naruto mocked with a look that spelled trouble. "Shall I arrange for you to see her again?" "I can if that's what you want." The result was instantaneous as Iruka smacked Naruto hard across the head. By this time, Kiba Choji and Shikamaru were holding their guts while laughing their asses off at the scene between Naruto, Sasuke and Iruka. Knock it off, Naruto. Iruka berated. Naruto rubbed the spot where Iruka smacked him. Damn it, sensei. Naruto yelled. Lighten up. I was only joking. Naruto-kun, Hinata sighed with her eyes closed. I'm going to seriously hurt Naruto one of these days, Sakura growled. Get in line, forehead, Ino remarked while radiating the same amount of bloodlust and malice. Later, Naruto and Hinata returned back to Konoha undetected and stood on the off of one of the houses Naruto Shushinto with Hinata being carried bridal style in his arms. Naruto was about to say something when Naruto-kun, Hinata said as she pointed and directed Naruto's attention to the defaced monument. Clearly something has taken place during our absence from the village. Naruto looked to see what his girlfriend was talking about. Upon seeing the monument, what the hell? Naruto remarked after seeing the mess it was in. When did this? Just then memories came flashing and merging with his mind, his and Hinata's. It was after a couple of minutes when the memory and experience flashes were absorbed and settled into their heads, giving them a more thorough understanding of the day's events inside the village walls. A minute later, Naruto started snickering before bursting into an all-out fit of laughter. You really are such a clown, Naruto-kun, Hinata remarked. I can't believe you did all this. But you hold affections for me anyway. Naruto grinned before his moved closer and kissed Hinata on her lips while still carrying her. Enjoying this kiss, Hinata kissed him back, and just as she was getting into the mood of things. Naruto. Ah, damn it, Naruto muttered dejectedly, knowing how much trouble he was in after hearing the tone of Iruka's voice. Hinata climbed down off his arms and stood back on her feet. It'll be best if you're not seen here with me, Naruto advised. Hurry on home quickly. Hinata nodded and gave Naruto a quick peck on the lips before turning and leaping off the roof and making her way down the wall and onto the ground just seconds before Iruka appeared behind Naruto. The said blonde turned to face his angry Chunin sensei. The hell? Naruto yelled. How do you be finding me? You're not escaping your punishment that easily, Naruto, Iruka said. Let's go. You have a monument to thorough wash clean. Just my luck, Naruto muttered lowly as he was taken away by Iruka. Should have seen how I would get myself into trouble for cutting class and everything I did. You only have yourself to blame for that, Naruto, Iruka chastised. Yuage, Naruto muttered. Oh, the irony. Later at the Hyuga Manor, Hinata was entering her clan's estate saying hello to all of the cadet branch members she passed by. They replied back to her as they took note that Hinata was considerably happy, more so than usual. Reaching her house, she removed her sandals and entered the house, making her way toward her room. Reaching her door, Naruto is in trouble again, Nisan, Hanabi stated from behind her older sister. I'm sure you saw what he did to the Hokage monument. Why yes, Hinata said meekly while instinctively putting her mask back on. I did. I was with father at the time when we caught sight on him running from the Chunins and Junins that were covered in mixed colors of paint, Hanabi explained. We also saw how Naruto managed to outwit and lose them without them knowing that he was still in the same spot hiding under a camouflaging cloak the entire time. The chase ended when Naruto got careless and was finally caught by your class sensei. Was father mad? Hinata asked as worried as possible. Hard to say, Hanabi replied. I couldn't read his expression or what was going through his mind at that moment. His expression was completely neutral. I will admit that I was rather impressed at how Naruto eluded the ninjas after him so skillfully long after defacing the monument underneath everyone's nose. But I still wonder what it is about Naruto that you see in him. What makes him so special to you? Hinata stuttered. Yes, Hanabi insisted, wanting to hear her sister's explanation. I'll tell you about it someday, Hinata finally said before opening her door and hurrying inside before closing it behind her. Hanabi stood there